We got a big fight coming up tomorrow night inside the Apex. Amanda Hebos, the number 8 ranked flyweight, takes on the former strawweight champion of the world, Thug Rose Namajunas. Dean, your thoughts on this fight? We have Amanda Hebos, who has sort of bounced around between weight classes. She has a much better record at 115 pounds than she does at 125 pounds. But she takes the assignment to take on Thug Rose at 125. Your thoughts on Hebos in this fight against Thug Rose?
Well, I think the world of Amanda Hebos as a person and as a fighter. If you know her as a person, she's a ball of light. She's a breath of fresh air, and her smile when she walks into a room just lights up everybody. However, when she's inside of a cage, when she's inside that octagon, she is absolutely relentless, and her fighting style is very different from her personality, which is contradictory to how I always look at fighters. Fighters, their personality and their fighting style is normally somewhat similar, but for her, it's absolutely different. When she fights, she comes forward. She's relentless. She's durable. She's not afraid to be in the fire. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty, and she wears on her female opposition. And that's how she wins a lot of fights. Not to mention, she's supremely skilled, but it's her durability, her relentless forward pressure, and her ability to just stay in there longer and just endure that suffer contest longer than her opponents.
When you look at her opponent, I mean, Thug Rose is a legend, if not already, worthy of the UFC Hall of Fame. She's a 2-time strawweight champion. You're relatively new to this flyweight class, but still very tough. And for Amanda Hebos, she said, if I want to beat a legend, or if I want to be a legend, I got to beat a legend. And it made me think, while Rose Namajunas is not necessarily the most intimidating figure in the world, she does have that legendary status. She can walk the walk, and despite not really talking the talk, she can be intimidating. Do you think Hebos will look across the octagon and be intimidated at all by who she's mixing it up with in the main event?
No, she will not be, because Rose does not possess that level of intimidation that you speak of. And that's not the type of fighter she is. And she doesn't thrive off of intimidating opponents. She thrives off of being very good, making good decisions, and just being precise about what it is that she wants in fights. And that's why she got to where she has gotten. And if you look at her resume, she beat Joanna, who just got put into the Hall of Fame. If Weili Zhang would have retired, Weili Zhang would be in the Hall of Fame too. She not only beat them twice, she finished them one time, and then she beat them in decision another time to prove that she's just a better fighter than 2 Hall of Famers in that weight class. To me, Rose is the best straw weight to ever live. Now she's going up to 125 pounds. I think this is good for her, because now she doesn't have to worry about cutting that extra weight. She can dedicate her time into her craft and dedicate all her thought process into how she can be a better fighter. I think this is a good test for her. The first fight, I think, was a harder test, because she dealt with a bigger opponent at 125, and then she broke her finger in the first round, so we didn't get a chance to see her full skill set. But I think this is going to be the true test of whether or not Rose still has something left, and can she do it at 125?
There is that old saying that, your record follows you forever in mixed martial arts. There are no seasons. There are no do-overs. Everyone can have an off night, but when you're at this part of your career, like Rose Namajunas is, I think every single night sort of depends on, what your future could be as well, or your future depends on how you perform. And when I look at Rose, if she is flat in this fight, Dean, people are going to start to not necessarily say she has to be done, but they're going to start to talk about her potentially, having 1 or 2 more fights before retiring. Would you buy or sell the fact that tomorrow night's performance has a lot to say about the future of one Thug Rose Namajunas?
Absolutely, because she is that type of fighter. When you're dealing with these fighters that are at such a high level and that they're very good, they don't get the luxury of being what we and you like to call journeymen. They don't get that luxury to make too many mistakes. When you look at fighters like Kamaru Usman, Alexander Volkanovski, who've dominated, who've been at the top, who've done things that no one else can do, when they start to fall off, that's it for them. They don't get the luxury of going back and starting over and rebuilding their career. So I get it. So if Rose doesn't look good in this fight, she doesn't have the luxury of becoming a journeyman. She cannot start over like Angela Hill did and then start to try to break, records in terms of most fights and most amount of time in the cage, because her legacy is built on how good of a fighter she was and how she was able to capitalize on in the moments. And this is a moment for her. And if she puts up a performance like she did against Carla Esparza, it'll stick with her. I mean,
Right.
that performance with Carla Esparza still sticks with Rose, only because we expect greatness out of her because we know what she's capable of. So she does have to perform. But when I think about it, when I think about where Rose probably is in her life, the fact that Pat Barry, she has such good chemistry with Pat Barry, and they've been around together for so long. I feel like she's in a good place. I've been watching her around here these last couple of days. Her energy has been great. I feel like she's in a good place. And if she does have something left, I do feel like she will display that Saturday night.
I'm curious when you bring up the mental side of things. Rose has always seemed to be a fighter that when she's mentally right, she's terrifying. I mean, Joanna is probably the most intimidating woman to ever fight at 115 pounds, and Rose was getting herself through the stare downs in New York City by chanting some sort of weird tongues, and Joe Rogan was talking about it, and it was terrifying. And that's because Rose was dialed in. How much of a fight do you feel in your own personal career? Was it a mental battle within yourself?
Oh, it's all mental. Well, especially when you're dealing with the type of fighter that I was and the type of fighter that Rose is. She's crafty. She relies on technique, and that technique that she relies on is like a magic trick. And in order to do magic, the conditions have to be right.
Right.
Everything has to be right. Everything has to be in order. And if you're out of order mentally, the conditions aren't right. So again, when you're dealing with fighters like, let's say, Clay Guida or some of the other type of fighters that are just a little bit more physical, conditions don't have to be right. They're able to just run through that stuff. But this is not the type of fighter that Rose Namajunas is. Rose is a cerebral, crafty type of fighter. Things have to be right for her. Things have to be in order for her. So, in order for that to happen, everything has to be in sync. Her physicality has to be in sync with her emotions, which has to be in sync with her mental state. All that stuff has to come together. And if something's off, we'll see a poor performance.
Rose is a pretty sizable favorite, around minus 220. I saw that might change as we get closer to the fight. Is that the right line? Should Rose be an over 2-1 favorite to Hebos?
Rose should be over 2-1 favorite, because when you look at Rose's skill set and what you know that she's capable of doing. Now, this is if she performs at the level that we know she's capable of performing at. Rose is the best female fighter in the world right now. I think Rose would beat Weili Zhang again. I think she would beat any female. I think, yeah, any of the females, and perhaps even at 125. And that's where we'll be able to tell that Saturday night. So I think the line is about right. However, if things are not right for her mentally, they will not go well for her, especially if it gets into the later rounds, because we know that Amanda Hebus in the later rounds will thrive. We know that she thrives off of pressure. She'll take a hit, she'll keep coming forward, and she can still finish you while she's hurt. So that's why I think this fight is so intriguing, because I think the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Amanda, because I think Amanda will be able to stay in there. I don't know if Rose could stay in there if things get a little rough for her. I think Rose is the type that may crack if things get a little rough for her, but I know Amanda will not. So that's the real key in this fight. Who, if Amanda can put that pressure on her and get this into the later rounds, she may be able to crack Rose.
For Amanda Hebos, this is her first UFC main event assignment, but not her first 5-round fight. She has fought there before prior to stepping foot in the octagon. I mentioned her mixed success at flyweight, 2-2 at 125 pounds inside the UFC, 5-1 in the UFC at 115. Where is her future, Dean? I mean, is she, just taking this fight as a one-off, or is she, headed back to the strawweight division? What do you foresee for her?
No, I think that when she has the ability to fight in two different weight classes, that just gives her more options. And I think it's great, actually. I think that the more, because I mean, I don't think that Amanda Hebos has championship aspirations. So I can't put that level of weight on her, the same level of weight that I put on Rose. I think Amanda Hebos is more of a journey woman type fighter. And the fact that she can fight and dabble in between two different weight classes is going to be a benefit for her because now it just opens up opportunities for her to have a lot of fun matches. And if she does get to the level where she can fight for a championship, that'd be great for her. But I don't imagine that to happen. I think that she's going to stick around in that top 10 in both different divisions. She'll give us a lot of fun fights. She'll be around for a little bit, and then she'll make a little bit of money for herself. So I think it'll be great for her.
It is Extra Rounds from UFC Fight Pass. TJ DeSantis along with Dean Thomas. We appreciate you joining us on this Friday afternoon. You're in the Apex right now, aren't you? You're all like
I'm in the Apex. I've been in the Apex all morning.
Man.
I just got off the show.
Dang. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with the common people like me.
Are you kidding me? This is one of my favorite things to do. I'm just so glad. Can I give a shout out to the staff at the UFC Apex? I know you're more of a Performance Institute and headquarters type guy, but I'm an Apex guy, and I got to give a shout out to all the staff here at the Apex. They've always taken care of me. They look out for me. They make sure that I've always got good internet connections and that I can do shows. I wouldn't have been able to do the show today with you if it wasn't for the staff here at the Apex.
Yeah, no, they saved the day. So thank them for me.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about some other stuff. You and I haven't chatted in a while, and I feel like we need to catch up on some things.
Yeah, there are some things to catch up on.
Yeah.
I like the red glasses. It matches the red polo logo on your shirt.
You know, it's dressing up a pig, lipstick on a pig. That's what we're trying to do here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear you.
All right. Let's chat a little bit about UFC 299. We saw the Sugar Show in full effect. Sean O'Malley successfully defends his title against Chito Vera, avenging that loss from a few years ago. Your thoughts on Sean O'Malley's performance down in Miami?
I mean, it was spectacular. You know, I think Chael Sonnen said that was the greatest performance of a bantamweight that he's ever seen. I will not go that far because to this day, Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz is the greatest performance of any bantamweight ever. However, Sean O'Malley's performance was spectacular. He was sensational in Miami. He went out there. He did everything he needed to do. He was almost perfect, and he showed a lot of improvement in areas. His footwork is just absolutely phenomenal. He's going to give a lot of people a lot of problems just with his footwork alone. And then you add into the fact that he's a sniper on the outside. And we see that little front kick there. That's going to be a problem for a lot of people too, because he can hit you when you don't think he can hit you. And he moves so well. I think Sean O'Malley could be champ for a while.
It's so crazy to look at those old clips of O'Malley because like he looked like a child when he came up on the Contender Series. And now he's this, well-rounded, full-bodied champion. And I don't even know if he's reached his max potential yet, Dean.
I don't think he has. And I've been dying to speak to his coach, Tim Welch, about it. And I remember seeing those guys at a UFC a long time ago before. He might not even have fought in the UFC at the time. And I remember watching him work out. And I was thinking in my head, this kid is really good. He was good everywhere. I watched him hit pads equally well from both sides. I watched him move around on the ground, and he was just as smooth as I've seen any grappler. And I was like, this kid's going to be really good. Now, to watch his ascension from then till now, I mean, it says a lot about him as a fighter, him as a person, and just that dynamic that him and Tim Welch have as coach and athlete.
Looking at O'Malley next, I mean, he's said that he has some, willingness to even move up and fight Ilia Topuria, who got past Alexander Volkanovski in devastating fashion. But as far as the next 135-pound challenger is concerned, I think it's the machine, Merab Dvalishvili, obviously a teammate of the former champion in Aljamain Sterling. When you look at Merab, what sort of dangers does he present O'Malley that maybe Aljo didn't? Are there any?
Well, no, there are definitely competitive advantages that Merab has that, well, I mean, when you think about it, Aljamain Sterling was kind of pushed into this fight. I don't think he fully wanted to be in the fight. And because of that reason, I don't think he was ready to compete as well as he could have. Now, Merab, on the other hand, Merab is an absolute competitor, regardless of the circumstances. When Merab shows up, Merab is going to compete. And I think that's going to be the difference, because I think Aljamain was just kind of out there because he felt like he was forced to be out there. And not to say that he didn't try as hard as he absolutely did. But I just don't think that his heart was fully in it. But when you deal with a guy like Merab, I think his heart is going to always be fully in it. And I think that's going to be the biggest difference. But there are some similarities between Aljo and Merab that will favor Sean O'Malley.
Interesting. Tell me more.
That is the fact that Sean O'Malley on his feet is quicker than they think he is. And Aljo said that. Aljo said that. Aljo said, I was not used to somebody being as quick as me on the feet because I'm usually the one who's quicker on the feet. I was not used to that. I have to assume that Aljo's probably a little quicker than Merab. Maybe not as relentless as Merab, but quicker than Merab. And Aljo had a hard time corralling Sean O'Malley into a space in which he could do some damage. He was able to get a hold of him once, but wasn't able to hold on to it. Merab's going to have more trouble than we all think he will getting close to O'Malley. Now, once he gets in, it could be different there, but he's going to have more trouble than we all expect him to.
Some of the questions that were, going on throughout the run-up of O'Malley becoming champion was, a lot to do with that Chito Vera fight. He also hurt his leg into an earlier fight, but his leg health, his ability to take punishment to his legs, has he put that sort of criticism to bed now, with this successful title defense?
Yeah, it's hard to say because Chito really didn't do anything.
Right.
So it's very difficult to say. Like we still don't know. I think the only way we'll really know is if Jonathan Martinez fights him or Chris Gutierrez, right? Like one of the really good leg kickers in the division fights him. Pedro Munoz is a good leg kicker.
Mm-hmm.
He gave him problems.
Right.
Then the eye poke happened. So we still don't know. But even though Pedro's such a good leg kicker, obviously O'Malley was able to take it. But we still don't know if O'Malley, because really bone health, it doesn't get much better in a couple of years. Your bones don't get stronger in a couple of years. So we still don't know if that's something that we can put behind us. Again, he's going to have to fight one of the better kickers in the division for us to truly know.
It's funny. You mentioned, all the things that you can work on in the gym. Durability is not really one of them.
Yeah, you either like being durable. That's just, and I don't want to say you're born with it, but it's just something that you are willing to endure or not.
Right.
Like when you look at Amanda Hebus, like you think she was born with durability. Like I can't say that, but I just know she's willing to go through it. She's willing to go fire to get what she wants. Some people are not willing to go through it. Some people don't have the physicality to go through it, and that's been the big question for Sean O'Malley. Does he have the physicality to go through it? And we don't know because Chito didn't really put it on him like we thought he would.
Yeah. What was it? Was it an off night for Chito? Was it something that O'Malley did? Was it just the footwork alone that prevented Chito from getting his offense?
The thing with Chito is not the most talented fighter. And this was something that we all knew, but he has a way of keeping fights close because he is so devastating when he's able to get his hands on you. Now, when you look at the fight against Rob Font, Pedro Munoz, and when you take those fights into account, I thought he lost a good portion of the majority of the fights against both guys. But every time he hit them, they were all over the place. Like he hit them one time and they were all over the place. And Chito has that ability. So even Corey Sandhagen, he never really got his hands on him. He never got a chance to really hit Sean O'Malley. That was the problem. Sean O'Malley stayed focused, and I knew this would be the key for Sean O'Malley, but to be able to stay he had to stay focused throughout the entire 25 minutes and not allow himself to get hit like that. Now, you do notice in that fifth round, Sean O'Malley got hit. It was in the body.
Right.
It was in the body. Now, if there was a sixth round, who knows? That fight could have probably been different. He eventually caught up to him, but it was in the body. So had that happened in the second round or the third round, we might be looking at a different fight. But Chito, we call him a slow starter. I don't necessarily think he's a slow starter. I just think that he just never really starts. He's there until you give him the perfect opportunity to do damage on.
If you were the matchmaker, who would be next for Sean O'Malley? Would it be Merab Dvalishvili, or would it be
Merab
no sort of super fight with Topuria or anything like that?
No, as we're starting to see when we start to play this game with super fights and these interesting matchups, it's fun to do.
Right.
But it also muddies the waters.
I agree.
So it does muddy the waters. When we look at the super fight now, I mean, the best matchup that we could possibly have in the UFC right now, which I think should have been main event for UFC 300, is Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. That could have absolutely been main event for UFC 300, and I would have been happy with that. But you know what it did? It tied up Justin Gaethje. Said now he can't fight Islam for the title.
Right.
And it also tied up Max Holloway to where he can't fight Ilia Topuria for the title.
Right.
So we do these super fights, it ties up the divisions. Because if there's super fights, you're only dealing with superstars. Listen, if we're going to do super fights, let's do them with journeymen. Where it doesn't really matter, right?
You make a solid point there. You know, no one wants to be held hostage if they're a champion that wants to fight a number one contender, or a number one contender who's got to go through another step before they get an opportunity. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I would love to. I never really thought about that, but you're right. I mean, now that Volkanovski is no longer the champion, I mean, Holloway has a decent argument to get another title crack.
He could have been, and Holloway presents a different problem for Ilia Topuria than we've seen Ilia Topuria deal with.
Yeah.
So we don't know if he could even. So when I look at the matchup, I go, Max Holloway might be able to beat Ilia Topuria. He might be the guy. He might be the kryptonite for Ilia Topuria, but we'll never know because we have the super fight, the BMF title. So we'll never know. Now, like I said, don't get it twisted. Don't say that I don't want to see this BMF title, because I think that this is one of the better fights on that UFC 300 card. But in terms of having champions and for title discussions in those weight classes, this muddies the waters.
All right, another man we're not going to see at UFC 300, but we can see on Amazon Prime now in his major motion picture debut, is one Conor McGregor. Roadhouse is out now, Dean Thomas. You're
I watched it. I watched it yesterday.
Did you?
I watched it as soon as it came out. Thursday morning, I watched it.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Oh, man. So I'll say this, man. You know the perception that we have of what Conor McGregor's probably like in his real life?
Right.
That's the character that he plays.
Then he's perfect.
It was absolutely perfect. Like whatever I pictured Conor McGregor's life to be like, that's what it was. Uh-oh.
Oh, we're good. We got through it. So whatever
okay.
So it's just Conor extending himself through a character.
Yes, it's just Conor extending himself to a character, just reckless, wild, doing whatever he wants in life. That's what he was doing. And in terms of like acting, you know, I thought that the writers and the director did a good job of going, okay, we know you're not a professional actor. We don't expect you to be a professional actor, but we want you to be this, and I'll say be a caricature of yourself.
Right.
And then we're going to give you a whole bunch of like one-liners to say so that you have a bunch of sound bites. I mean, very, very Arnold Schwarzenegger from the 80s type, you know, just, I'm here, guys, you know, just a bunch of one-liners that just make sense that you could just put in commercials. And that's what it was. Now, in terms of the story and the acting, I mean, it was, you know, it was a bit corny, but you know, that's exactly what I think they were going for. Right. But Jake Gyllenhaal was fantastic in it. I mean, he really was fantastic. Jake Gyllenhaal was an absolute monster in front of that camera. So he really carried that movie, I felt, in terms of the acting. But I thought that they did a good job, and whatever goal they were attempting to do with that movie, I think they hit it.
Does this open up more doors for Conor as far as acting goes? No.
Okay. There's absolutely no way.
All right.
And here's why I think. It's because what I think his strengths in acting or in front of the camera are going to be too demanding. Because when you think about the character that he played, and he was like, man, I don't want to do that no more, because it was such a demanding character, because it wasn't like he's just sitting there giving dialogue.
Right.
I mean, everything he did was just outlandish. It was like these big movements and fight scenes and all. Like, I couldn't imagine doing his role, and just like everything I did had to be a big fight scene so yeah, I think that and I'm not sure that Conor has the discipline or, you know, just the personality to sit down and be like, all right, I want to be a really good actor, and I'm going to learn lines, and I'm going to learn how to have, you know, breath control, and I'm going to learn how to, you know, be focused as an actor. I don't think he has that. I think he could do what he did in this movie.
Right.
It's too demanding.
All right. Well, I'm going to watch it tonight.
Yeah. It's not a bad watch. It's a very enjoyable watch. It was fun to watch, but like I said, it was and Conor's fun in it, but you know, I don't expect him to play Tom Hanks in Philadelphia 2, right? I don't expect that, right?
Fair enough. Well, you can't tell the story of Conor McGregor's career without talking about Jose Aldo, and Jose Aldo is back coming up here at UFC 301 down in Rio. The King returns. What are your thoughts on the return of Jose Aldo? This is interesting to me, Dean.
I don't like it, man. The thing is, my shirt is still drenched from tears of when he retired. They haven't dried yet. And then when he was in the Hall of Fame, it still hasn't dried yet. And then now he's out of retirement. I'm not sure I like it. Now, I love Jose Aldo as a fighter. I was afraid to fight him back when I was fighting. I mean, he's an absolute savage. And I think it's going to be a good welcoming back, especially down in Rio. And there is some sense made of him fighting in Rio, but the fact that he just retired and just got put into the Hall of Fame is like, bro, you cried wolf. Now what? Now when you retire again, like, are we supposed to give you the same love that we gave you when you retired the first time?
Well,
Like, I don't like that.
now the division has changed. 135 is a completely different sort of upper echelon hierarchy. So
But it was when he left.
Sure, but now we got a new champion. I mean, Jose Aldo against Sean O'Malley, that might be fun. Buy or sell. Jose Aldo has another title run left in him.
Sell.
All right.
I mean, I don't see what could be man, I tell you what, I don't see how his fight with Piotr Jan could be any different. Piotr Jan looked absolutely outstanding in Miami. He got past that first round, and when I saw him fight, I said, this guy has the skill set to be the champion. He has the skill set to beat Sean O'Malley. But you know what he doesn't have? He doesn't have the tactics. And it probably comes from the fact that he doesn't have, and I'm just speculating here, I don't think he has a coach that he listens to in terms, like one guy that he listens to that really brings him along the same way Tim Welch does with Sean O'Malley, who said, all right, Sean, you're good at this, but we got to fix this. You're good at this. We got to fix this. I don't think Piotr Jan has that, because if he did, he'd have somebody telling him, dude, you're a fantastic kicker. You need to kick more.
Right.
Man, your takedowns are actually pretty good. You need to take people down more. You do this because he goes out there, he's so one-dimensional at times. It's so predictable. It just ruins his fighting style. But if he were to do everything that he's capable of doing, there's nobody in the bantamweight division that would beat him.
How is it to try to keep a superstar sort of in line? Because on the come up, I think people are probably a bit more coachable. You know this. You were in a room full of legends, coming up.
Oh yeah, I got to tell you, you don't keep them in line.
Is it impossible at a certain
No,
point?
it's impossible to keep them in line, and you think it's not, but it really is, because everybody changes around you. And
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, and we always go, oh man, that person changed. That person changed. But that person did, and they did change. Like, I'm sure Sean O'Malley did change, but he changed because everybody around him changed. And everybody, the way people treat him changed everywhere.
Right.
And he had to weed through people trying to take advantage of him, and he had to weed through people just using him for stuff. And then now there's people wanting to give him stuff, and that changes you. And it makes you feel like at some level, okay, now I'm really important, or at some level, a little bit skeptical of people and cynical of people. But it does change you one way or the other. It does change you. And I don't know if you can get around that. Like, you have to have a very in touch with your person. And I don't think fighters have it, but you have to be very holistic in order to deal with the level of fame that these guys go through and not change.
I mean, it was easy when you were fighting for, a 12-pack of beer back in the day. You
Oh yeah,
stay
it
humble.
was easy. No, I mean, I stay humble. I mean, I still, I remember seeing my name in like Full Contact Fighter magazine, like Dean Thomas ranked number 3 lightweight in the world, and yet I'm still like can't pay my bills. It's a big difference. Like, I'm proud of myself for the accomplishments, but I was struggling. It wasn't like people were going out to me trying to give me money and trying to take me out on boats and stuff like that and give me cars. It was nothing like that. And I can see how these guys change. They do
Yeah.
change. I don't hate them for it, but they also come back. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They also come back, and I'm there for them when they come back. But I always remind them, remember how you was a couple years ago when you thought you was the man? Now look at you, ashy. Get this man some lotion.
I'm not saying that this guy changed by any means, but what I am saying is I remember the moment where I thought, all right, championship status, it changes, the scenario. And what I'm talking about is when Anthony Pettis found himself on the box of Wheaties, back in like 2010 or 11, like I really felt like that was when the mainstream started embracing UFC champions in a way that they never had before. I mean, it's the breakfast of champions, and Anthony Pettis's mug was all over that thing.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me tell you something. So I never really had a relationship with Anthony until he came down from that change. And I remember that, but he did. I remember that. I remember Anthony when he was at the top of his career. And I remember how off-putting he was towards people. And again, not a bad thing because I'm sure that a lot of people were trying to attack him and take stuff from him. But I remember how difficult he seemed to be. And just like, man, this guy is very standoffish. And I just remember talking to his brother Sergio, thinking Sergio was so much cooler, so much more welcoming and friendly. And Anthony was always kind of like standoffish. But I see Anthony now, and he's not that way no more.
Well, I think it's hard to go from being a guy who's sort of under the radar to the man. And when you are in that spotlight, everybody comes up to you.
Yeah, it's true. Everybody comes up to you, and then but then we have a tendency to also deal with a lot of haters. Oh,
Right.
people hating on me. And they have a tendency to see a lot of that. So, like, there's a lot of things emotionally going on with them. Like, oh, you're supposed to love me, but all these people hate me. And then they don't want to do, and they want to get it. You got to pay me for this. And it's a tough thing to get through, which is why I think a lot of champions struggle once they become champion. And then when they're not champion no more, it seems to be a lot of weight off their shoulders.
Yeah, it goes the other way too, because I feel like Kamaru Usman, when he was dominating everybody at 170 pounds, he kept talking about haters, and it's like people are calling you the GOAT at 170. A lot of people think you're better than George St. Pierre. Who are you talking about? Haters? What are you talking
Yeah,
about? He needed
again,
that.
man, we have this bias, right? We have this bias to always see the negative sometimes because it motivates them. Like,
Yeah.
to show people up motivates them. So like they overestimate how many haters they have. It wasn't a lot. Like when he was coming up, it wasn't a lot. But we have a tendency to put a magnifying glass on all these haters because it motivates them to want to do better. So I get it. But these guys, they just, it could be like two haters and they go, everybody hates me. Like, no, man, what are you talking about? Nobody said anything about you.
What motivates you, Dean Thomas?
You know what motivates me? And I think I'm different than most people because I'm not financially motivated. I'm just motivated by doing the work. Like I like to do the work. I'm like if I could color all day and just draw and color all day, I would because I just like doing the work. So that's what motivates me, getting the job and doing the work.
I think you just made a good argument to be like a preschool teacher. You can just sit there and color all day with kids.
Hey man, I'm not opposed to that. I tell you what though, if I'm not doing this, I don't know if there's many other things that I can do. So preschool teacher might have to be in my cards because there's nothing else I can do. And I am not doing manual labor. And there's nothing against people that do manual labor, because I can't do it. I'm not man enough to do manual labor.
I mean, man is the first part of manual labor. So if
And
you're
I'm
not,
not man enough to do it.
I
So
feel
you'll
you.
never see me out there cutting grass or digging holes or on a roof or hammering a nail. I'm not capable of that stuff.
Well, you are capable of going straight from television to this show, and I appreciate you doing so today, Dean. Looking good. Next time, let me know so I can try to,
Well,
do more than just put on a pair of red glasses to.
but the glasses and the red little logo is matching. So like you looking sharp, TJ.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm happy for you.
I appreciate it. I got to go get on a plane now. I'm going to Mexico City for combat jiu-jitsu, which is Sunday on UFC
Oh,
Fight Pass.
wonderful, man. Well, have a good time down there, man. I hope it works. I'm a big fan of the combat jiu-jitsu stuff. I love the transition that those guys could make. And it's like Cody Steele and these guys are making from jiu-jitsu, doing combat jiu-jitsu, and then making their way over to MMA. So I love what they're doing down there with the combat jiu-jitsu. So have a good time.
Thank you, Dean. You have a good time covering this event tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm covering the event tomorrow, but you know where I'm headed now,
Where are you going?
which will also be on Fight Pass. Tough Enough.
Tough enough. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm headed to Tough Enough now. That's also going to be on Fight Pass. So make sure y'all watch Tough Enough.
I'm a tough enough veteran, Dean. I called one of their events last year.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it turns out I wasn't tough enough because they didn't call me back.
I'll have a talk with him then.
Thank you. Tell Jeff I say hello.
All right.
All right, Dean Thomas, appreciate your time, sir.
Be blessed.
There he is, Dean Thomas, joining us here on Extra Rounds. I want to remind you, Tough Enough is available for you coming up tonight on UFC Fight Pass. We also got some other action headed your way. We got Unified MMA. That's going down tonight as well. Tomorrow, Polaris 27. They got a Grand Prix going on, as well as a pretty epic title fight featuring Fionn Davies. Check that out. LFA headed your way tomorrow as well. Fury FC on Sunday, and then the aforementioned Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds. That's going down in Mexico City. I will be on the call with BMAC, Brandon McCaffrey. Hopefully he will join us live on UFC Fight Pass. Speaking of BMAC and UFC Fight Pass, we got a ground control coming up pretty soon as well. Myself, BMAC, Claude Gigadelia, recapping the FPI, which is also available on demand for you right now on UFCFightPass.com. Go check that out. Live events, original programming, the largest combat sports library, all available for you right now, anytime over at UFC Fight Pass. Speaking of the library, today, did a free fight marathon on YouTube, which should be available for a couple more days. We delved into the archive and I got to watch some old school Vanderlei Silva fights. Vanderlei going into the UFC Hall of Fame in the Pioneer Wing later on this year, coming up at International Fight Week. We looked at some of the best hits from the Axe Murderer in Pride, so definitely go check that out. Anytime is fight time when you have a subscription over on UFC Fight Pass. Want to thank Dean Thomas for coming on the air, talking about everything that he talked about. It's good catching up with Dean. I don't think he and I have chopped it up on Extra Rounds since like September or something like that. So hopefully more of Dean Thomas here on Extra Rounds. Again, I'm TJ DeSantis. Appreciate you joining us. Follow me on X and Instagram or wherever else social media exists. I am there. So that's that. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy all the fight action. And we'll be chatting to you soon enough on Extra Rounds here from UFC Fight Pass.
I can't believe this.